Now what are we gonna fight for?
Truth.
And...
Justice!
Good boy.
Beat the villains, control them, and make them fight for you. Spider-Man, friend or foe, you won't believe who's on your side. Rated everyone 10 and up.
When it comes to superheroes, if it wasn't Batman being talked about, it was most likely the web-slinging hero himself, Spider-Man. Before the cinematic universe gave way to many well-known heroes, Spider-Man had the spotlight for many years. This was in due thanks to the famous 2000s Sam Raimi trilogy, and with famous movies come the tie-in video games. Now, Spider-Man had many video games before the trilogy, for better or worse. What if I told you there was a game that was official merchandise for the trilogy, but wasn't about the movies themselves? It sounds confusing until I show you the subject of today's review. Spider-Man, friend or foe? You find any other excuse to wear this mask, I dare you. I never had much experience with the games based on the movies other than Spider-Man 2, but the concept of friend or foe alone really intrigued me. Spidey teaming up with his greatest foes, I mean, how could that possibly go wrong? Well, I found out, and it wasn't exactly pleasant. Let's take a look. One night in New York, Spider-Man is attacked by many of his foes. Suddenly, a new symbiote force called Phantasms kidnaps Spider-Man's enemies. Spider-Man is brought along by Dustin Hoffman, Director Fury, to collect symbiote shards to stop a mysterious menace from using them to further develop his army. Spider-Man recruits both allies and enemies in a fight to stop the mastermind later revealed to be Mysterio. For some reason. Wow, get one of the worst bosses in history and you really go downhill, don't you? Donning the black suit, Spidey defeats Mysterio and Fury sends him off for the job well done, wanting to research the shards in a failed attempt to make a sequel. I would say more on the story, but the story is extremely basic, like a Saturday morning cartoon, except when you usually get gargoyles, friend or foe decides to be the Timon and Pumbaa. Mysterio being the main villain is rather obvious, even without the sudden foreshadowing after Section 4, what was mind controlling other villains. It'd be one thing if it had good laughs to go with it, but sadly the comedy falls flat in its face so many times it barely got a chuckle out of me. Whether in-game or in cutscenes, the humor just doesn't work, even with past Spidey James Arnold Taylor reprising his role. Time and time again, the same jokes are used, and they get old faster than me referencing voice actors in this game. Actually...
People need not introduce themselves to a dog. Fine. I shall tell you my name, wretched human. I am Yggdrasil, leader of Crucius, and the Desions.
Are you kidding? Do you know how popular I am? I got loads of people rooting for me. Sorry, boss. No one axes Axel. Got it memorized?
This count. I feel as if I'm looking at my future self. Mega bucks, big-ass house, fast cars, dining in style with a world-class chef and a trusty nutritionist counting every calorie.
Big shoulder robot man, green boy wearing tights. You must be superheroes. But will you still love me when I, Mojo Jojo, create an army of cybernetically enhanced battle monkeys? You truly are superheroes who do not fight villains, and you want to help me?
Daffy Duck, he had a farm, E-I-A-I-O. And on this farm he had an igloo, E-I-E-I-O. Look, Mac, just what's going on around here? Let's get organized, How about some scenery?
That's better. Alright, I got a game to review. You remember arcade beat-em-ups? The game where you move forward, bashing enemies with simple combos in an effort to make it to the boss fight? Well, that's essentially what you have here, except extend the length of the game for a few hours. As Spider-Man, or even as his ally, you move through levels beating foes, opening doors, beating foes, collecting items, beating foes, fighting bosses, beating foes. Oh, sorry, is that repetitive? Then you get the gist of the game. All you do is beat up the same 3 foes and the occasional mini-boss and enemy generator, design varying by location, go from room to room, and that's basically it. Granted, there are different attacks like grabs and aerial slams, but you only really need the 3-hit combo to win every fight. Spider-Man has the advantage of his web abilities, from long-range grabs to projectiles and web wraps. His allies do not. They could have projectiles or hard strength, but they really want you to pick Spider-Man, so they're not really all that special. The game will even lock on to the nearest enemy, so you can just mash the square button to win, without even looking. But hey, at least you get to pick Blade, if any kids knew who Blade was. I didn't. Going into that real quick, the character selection is, well, basic Spider-Man fare. Doc Ock, Green Goblin, Rhino, Black Cat, but then you get heroes like Iron Fist and even Silver Sable on Microsoft platforms. But come on, you know who they're missing.
Get back here, Shocker! Shocker!
So, from what I said so far, the game sounds easy. And to be honest, it can be. You can tell from the humor alone who the game is more geared towards. Regardless, a game can be fun for all ages, so the question is this one? Well, it can be, just as long as you use the upgrade lab. Here, you can upgrade your characters with extra health, strength and defense, and Spider-Man's web abilities. There's also an item shop, but you'll find most of these items in the level, so there's no point in buying them here. More on them in a bit. To do this, you need tech coins, given by beating enemies and breaking boxes in levels. Every death costs some coins, so not only does that make a game over basically non-existent, but you lose so few coins it hardly matters when you run out of health. Keep in mind that your ally also collect coins even when in single player, so it could give you a little boost when it comes to upgrading. The only time a death is really consequential is during a boss fight in single player mode, when you're forced to play as the other character that's not selected. It's really the only time you get to play as the second player if you only focus on Spider-Man. Speaking of bosses, yikes. Once you figure out the strategies of these bosses, they can be cakewalks. Whether throwing objects at the boss, or whatever strategy the game gives you, and I do mean the game gives you, they'll be taken down in no time. Even if they hit you, as long as you level up, their damage is so little it hardly matters. The only boss that got me pumped up was the final battle against Mysterio, but only because he actually put in effort to make a decent fight. Least favorite boss though has to be Venom. I like they use sound against him like in other versions, but execution wise lacked severely. In fact, the references here are probably the best part of the game. Doc Ock's machine from Spider-Man 2, to designs looking right out of the Raimi trilogy. Spider-Man fans could be happy seeing these, but it's not enough to save a game from being as boring as Fan 4 Stick. Wow, I never thought I'd have to compare this game to that atrocity. Hey kids, you like boring level design and cliche settings? Well, golly gee, this is the game for you. If you're older than 10? Are we sure we have the right ESRB rating? To go over levels, just like an arcade beat-em-up, they're very basic with here and there vertical platforming to give levels depth. There are bottomless edges and pits to keep you focused, but aside from sometimes obvious secret areas, you won't get farther than one flat arena connected to another. You'll know when enemies show up when there's a big door at the end, or sometimes you won't know at all and it curveballs you. Sadly, most of the time it's done by a dragged out cutscene interrupting the level flow. So expect that very often. It doesn't help they'll be in city levels, desert levels, temple levels. Like, I get we're traveling around the world, but nothing makes for interesting areas, so it got boring pretty quick. Well, I suppose that's the collectibles job, but even they fail to impress. And in levels where it can take up to 15 to 20 minutes, that can make or break the game. Guess which one it just so happens to be. Scattered in each level are DNA helixes, and when you collect them, you get character bios, enemy bios, locations, and artwork to go with each of them in the rewards hub. If you're a fan, these might serve a good purpose, if they weren't so easy to find most of the time. They'll be placed behind obvious doors or sometimes just in plain sight. Have a decent set of exploration, and you'll find most of these in your first run. The other collectibles are keystones. These are used to unlock keystone doors for an enemy gauntlet. Beat that, and you unlock a versus map. Yes, a versus map. If you have a second player, you can go against each other in locked arenas. The characters have the upgrades you give them though, so it can be an unfair match unless you put in the effort for an even playing field. It's nothing to write home about, so you can easily skip it. I know New Goblin's trying to. Here, but let me end your suffering. Your pain is finally over, my friend. There doesn't seem to be a 100% reward though, so it's up to you on whether or not you collect them. Oh, right, power-ups, almost forgot. There are 4 of them in the game, and they do the basic stuff you'd expect. Extra health, boosts your health, invincibility lets you take no damage, mega damage strengthens your attacks, and finally there's Hero Strike. This lets your characters team up for a screen nuke that takes out all enemies. Some attacks are cool, but others are not. It's not like you're going to use them often though. I really only used invincibility and Mega Strike once, and Hero Strike was whenever I got it. The former 3 you can find in levels, whether in boxes or randomly. But extra health, you have to buy in the upgrade lab, and I found no need for it, since when you break boxes, there's a chance you'll find health anyway. It's a way to make the game even easier, honestly. Nothing more, nothing less. I wish there was more I could add, but that's really it. Presentation-wise, it's just okay in both areas, nothing stands out. Combat is basic, and while fun at first to make some moves, nothing beats the basic move, so it gets stale pretty quick unless you really want to make an easier fight easier. Enemies are copy-paste, locations can be dull, bosses serve their purpose, story's lacking, it's just bare minimum. You could probably tell just by how many times I said boring throughout this entire video. The game took about 6 hours to finish, but it felt 3 times as long. To me, a boring game is worse than a bad game, and this, well, I think you can understand my point. You can safely skip this title. There are much better Spider-Man games out there that's worth your time. Trust me on that. I really wanted to like this game, but it just didn't work out. At least I finally finished it. That way I can put it back on my shelf, where it'll probably collect dust with the other games I haven't played. You know, makes you wonder, is there a superhero game based on another form of media that could actually work out? What? I'm the PS2Man. And next time, I think we'll find out together. Hi everyone, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed it, well, you know what to do. If you want to keep up with any updates, make sure to follow Twitter, and if you want to catch out any of my streams, feel free to check out my Twitch. Other than that, I'll see you next time. Take care everyone.